As you've probably seen the title of this video, we're going to cram in as much as we can. First of all, I'm going to talk about the new Microsoft Agent Framework, which is in preview at the moment, and then combining that with other announcements that we've had across the AI industry about skills and how that could be brought into more enhanced and enriched capabilities around these agents. Now, if you're not familiar with the new agent framework, this is a new framework that combines things like autogen and semantic kernel into something that's more fully fledged, one framework to rule them all. And I'm going to show you how all of this is capable and how you can get up and running today and fully understand what this framework can actually do for you. So there's a couple of things that you're going to need. You're going to need Visual Studio Code. So go away and install that. Then head back to this GitHub repo. This gives you detailed instructions about how to get started. The neat thing is here, once you've got Python installed, you can run this install command, which will install hundreds of different parts of this agent framework so we can get building straight away. So this, even I can do, you can do this as well. This will take a matter of minutes to get you up and running, and you can start building off the back of some templates and some examples that Microsoft's already created for you. But I've gone one step further than that, because during my learning, I am very much a visual learner. So listening to lots of videos and being able to really figure out the architecture in my head has been really hard for me, I'll be honest. So I'm going to do it for you. So if we think about when we're building agents, inside we have this AI agent, or we're going to call this the hub. And the reason why I'm going to call it the hub is because within this new framework, we can call multiple tools and knowledge and other capabilities that we would have struggled to do in the past. So this is going to be pro code development of agents, and hopefully I'm going to explain this as well as I can. But if we go to the top, we need some inference calls. We need to be able to call different models, different large language models, in order to help this agent decide what it's going to do. So we've got this inference call here that's going to go to an LLM. But using this framework, now you have the capabilities to call whatever you want. So for example, if we were calling models that sit within Azure, maybe the OpenAI models, we can do that. We could also call out to OpenAI themselves. We could call out to Anthropic for Claude models, for example, or even agents that we've already created within Azure Foundry. We can also call those as well. So you can pick and choose. You could even have multiple models if you wanted to, and then call those at the appropriate time that you need to. So what that means in English is the agent is able to send and receive messages for completion, but be provider agnostic in that integration. So you can swap out OpenAI or Azure AI for OpenAI or Claude or other models of your choice without actually changing the underlying agent code. So the chat client is wrapped up within some middleware and telemetry before being passed to the specific agent. And this is what we can see on our chart here. So we've got telemetry that can also be called, but also function execution. So that could be like calling things like an AI function, maybe a code interpreter, for example, or an MCP, so model context protocol, in order to bring in other tools. It might be things like web search, for example. We can call those functions and that telemetry into this agent that way. We also have orchestration as well. So if you're familiar with semantic kernel, we also have a very, very detailed way of being able to control multi-agent orchestration, even chaining agents together, which isn't natively supported within Copilot Studio. So you can do that here too. We can even build in workflows. So if there's a specific way that we want these agents to run and follow a certain path, we can create those workflows as well, which I'll show you in an example later on. Other elements include this conversational state, because wouldn't you hate if you're asking questions, it's totally forgot what you were talking about? So underneath this conversation state, we have threads. So this allows the agent to maintain that conversation history across turns, so abstracting both in-memory and service-managed threaded models, so using the same API, whether the messages are live, locally, or remote. So that thread really serializes or deserializes for persistence, and then can be resumed across different sessions or even restarts of conversations, just like you do within ChatGPT today. The next element is around memory injection. So here we could have a memory or a message store. So that can be called upon to retrieve certain information. So for example, if the context window is so big that it's starting to forget different elements, then we can use that message store in order to bring relevant information back into the chat. So for example, it's used for services without built-in storage, and you can substitute that for custom stores. So things like SQL or maybe Dataverse or Redis, which is a service that's sat on Azure. And that's really for production scenarios, so things that need really, really fast memory in order to bring that back. And then once that's attached, you can trim the context down, the context window, and then really stay within the model limits depending on what you're using. So remember, if you're using OpenAI's for one model, that can take up to 1 million tokens. But if you're using things like GPT-5, those thresholds are much, much lower. And then lastly, we've got this intercepts and policies. So this is quite a cool layer. This is a middleware that intercepts at 3 different layers. So agent run, function calling, and client chat. The cool thing about this is it chains the outmost part of the agent to the innermost to the client who's asking for it. So each layer calls the next to continue, or it can short circuit to deny or override certain aspects of this agent, which is pretty cool. And then the most important one that I've rewritten down here is observability. So being able to see exactly how that agent runs, get logs and telemetry from that, but also when you're testing that agent, being able to understand its steps and what it's going through and why it made that specific decision. So hopefully that visualizes what the framework is trying to do. There's lots of facets to this, but if you would like a deeper dive on this session, then we can do that too. So what we'll do next, we'll head over to Visual Studio Code and I'll show you a couple of examples of these agents running. Now, this is one Python file with an agent in there, a bit of a showcase to show you all of those functions and features I just showed you. And if we open up a terminal, we can actually run this within the terminal window. So I obviously have the framework installed. I've given it the file, and now we can see these different sessions, as I've called them, as building through. So you'll see streaming that just appeared then. So we're able to stream the responses from the LLM. If we scroll up, we can see exactly what it just did. So it's calling out to OpenAI, so their set of APIs, or we could call out to Azure AI, of course, when we're talking about those LLMs that we can call. There's 2 functions, so 2 tools that we can call. And we did a basic interaction, which is going to be non-streamed. So we're using those function calls to do a web search, for example, like what's the weather in Seattle? Oh, the weather in Seattle is rainy. Oh, that's a surprise. We could also do streaming as well. So rather than waiting for the response from the LLM, we can stream the response here that we just saw very, very quickly. And then we can also do a preservation test as well. So that memory that I was talking about, that memory injection. So it has context about what was being asked for before. Really, really simple agent, but it gives you an idea about how all of those elements I talked about around the inference calls, the orchestration, the function calls, the memory, like just a subset of the capabilities that this agent can do. They're pretty neat. Another thing I wanted to show you was the dev UI. So if I just jump to this for a second, you can activate this once you've installed the framework. If you open up a terminal window, and if you type in something like dev UI space dot, that should automatically bring up a web interface for you, which is what you can see on my other screen. And here's the examples, the sample gallery. There's only 4 at the time of this recording that you can use, but you can download that Python file. There are some .variable files, file that you need as well in order to create that interaction with the LLM. And then there's also this spam detection, which I'll go into in a moment, and also some other workflows as well. So remember, workflows are really cool for calling multiple agents or having a workflow that has a more structured way of doing other tasks that you want these agents to do, which is neat. But what this allows us to do is if I go back to my code a second and I call up this agent, so we'll do pyagent.py. I've created a little agent that uses the dev UI. So this is it loading up now. And then we can have a conversation with this. So we can say, hello, how are you? But this agent is designed to use something called skills. So Anthropic talked about skills coming into Claude late last week. So this is late October 2025 if you're watching the recording. And we're able to use like markdown files and examples of how we want agents to interact with that information. So typically we would go away and create another agent that would call with that specific purpose and those skills, those instructions, the resources. But now we can, at time that the agent needs, call those skills into that chat. So you might not need to build multiple complex agents. You could give this to your end user as well, and they would be able to update those skills and those instructions too. So here we go. What would you like to assist with? Now you can see within the dev UI, we've got events, traces, and tools that we can look in here. So as we're testing this agent, we can ensure that it's working in the most appropriate way. In Web UI as well, we can click on the little information icon here to see how this agent is configured. So it's got local sources. We're using OpenAI's chat APIs. You can see the instructions here as well, very, very light for this demo. And then what tools it can do. So it can search the internet. It can summarize tables, which is a custom built-in skill I've given it, and rewrite with tone. So for example, if I extract some text here from another website, I could say, can you change the tone of this text? This would be important for the next demo, so bear with me. And what we'll see the agent do is, of course, what tone would you like me to rewrite this text into? Now we can see the responses that are being sent and sent back from the LLM. But I could say in a friendly manner. And here we go. We've got our text back in a friendly manner. Now it's not acting like I want it to within this dev UI, and I'll show you what it's designed to do in a second. Oh, actually it is doing it. There is a function call here. So write with tone, it is working. Oh, I love live demos. So these are these built-in skills I'm talking about, where it's able to call those specific functions. Can we see this in the tools? Yes. So we can see that it's created this output from this tool result. And I've also got this bespoke skill as well as rewriting with tone. The idea behind this is you might have an agent that you want to have your tone of voice or your structuring of content. So you can call these tools. Now we would natively do that today within the instructions. So you'd say, if you're going to write a new paragraph, you need to sound like me. Here's some examples in your knowledge base. But we can be quite clever now with some of the announcements from Claude. And what skill announce with this way of bundling up different skills or knowledge? So you might have a policy or guidelines like PDF, for example. So we'd want that. We want this skill MD file. I'll show you all these files in a second, which is a markdown file of all of the instructions for that specific skill. So for example, if I'm a copywriter, I might have all of my different skills in that markdown file, but then call other knowledge like that, like brand guidelines, for example. Or if I am a cybersecurity consultant, like there's going to be specific skills depending on the investigation that I'm doing, right? Maybe it's for spam investigation. Like where would I go and how would I write that specific skill and those workflows? I would do that in that skills file. And then there might be other resources as well, which you can package up within a specific folder. So once you have all of those different elements, you can then package those up into a zip file, and that's a zip, and then import that into your agent. So as and when those skills need to be called, the agent only calls that skill when it's required. It's not looking at it all the time. So if you think about traditional agents as we build them today, like we're having a set of instructions or a set of tools or a set of knowledge that the agent has to trawl through first before it gives the answer to the user. Now that's not best, considering depending on model you're using, the context window might be blown out or it totally forgets a skill that you told it about before. And this really circumvents that. So let's run the same agent again. This is just a different web interface I've created so we can upload new skills and show you the concept of that. I've also got a little drop down here as well. So I've built into the agent code that is able to do analytics and brand writing, as I've shown you. And also I can decide whether I want the response from the LLM to be streamed, so I'm not waiting around for the message. Let's see if I can show you that. So if we say hi, we can see there's a bit of a pause for the response to come back. But if I say something like, how are you? And I turn on the streaming response, then you're able to see the message come in straight away. See, so that's coming directly or being streamed from the LLM. So here, just because the video I've typed in, can you change the tone of this text to be professional with my brand? You can see it's auto selected the brand writer. I do have the capability here in order to pick a skill of my choice if I wanted to manually, but the agent is understanding what the request is and then automatically choosing that skill. So reading that markdown file, looking at the resources, and then figuring out what it needs to respond to. So again, if we give it some text within here, then we should be able to see that being recreated with my tone of voice and my brand. Nice and easy. What we can also do is we can choose skills, right? So if I click on choose a file, what we can do is we'll jump into my little demo area here, and I've got some skills. So I've got a way of reformatting things like Word documents or Excel documents, given the Microsoft standards. I've got some eDiscovery policy governance, which we'll do in a second. So how to do investigations from an eDiscovery point of view or litigations. But we also got some internal comms. So I'm going to click on that one. It's zipped up already. And I'm going to open that, and I can upload a brand new skill. See it straight away. And you also see this new skill now being here as well. So let's try this out. So for example, if I write, can you rewrite this passage for internal comms? And then we hit send. We can see that the brand writer now has been reselected. Okay, so maybe I've got some similar skills within here. Let's try this again. We want internal comms for internal comms. Let's see if it reselects. Yeah, internal comms uploaded. I had to be quite specific in that. This is creating, this is based on that, that payload of creating a structured response. So this is in a JSON format, but we could use things like a function call or tool call into Code Interpreter. So then we could automatically fill out a brand new Word document or a PDF with that specific information. But hopefully you can see how skills can come in. And it's as simple as that. If I go into that, that skills folder, and I just open up one that, or we can open up the zip actually and show you what that looks like. You can see we got two files, this skill.markdown.md, and then we got some examples in here as well. So examples of other markdowns as well, but these could be PDFs or other documents that are resources that could be called in the skills. If we open up this markdown file, the skill one, this is all we've got in here. It has to be formatted in this way as well. So it needs to be have a name and a description, but also how it's going to be defined as a skill as well that that agent can call. So I think the important part here is it's just written in natural language. So as and when these instructions are changed, or I decide I want to use this skill in a totally different chat or even in another agent, we can call that too. So like I said, what we can do with these skills, it might be for just a normal chat, not typically like another skill as part of an agent, but it could be. Right, so I've just shown you something that internal comms, they have some skills, some strategies about how they write different documents. But if we go back to our Visual Studio Code Interpreter, and I open up another agent that I've been working on, something like a purview specialist. Let's open this up as a folder, and then we can see the code for this as well. Very monolithic, this code. This is very, very long. I would normally kind of split this out into a proper format in building agents. But this is designed to being able to call the REST APIs, so the graph APIs into Microsoft 365, and then use those set of commands in order to ask information about insider risk or eDiscovery, so data retrievals. But the reason why we might want to use skills within that is there might be a specific way that I run investigations for specific scenarios. So we call these targeted operating models. So a set of procedures from a business perspective, how you're going to run different investigations. So it could be things like a DSAR request where you're trying to find information for a specific person, and then there's certain deadlines for that retrieval to be done by. So we can do that too. Let's show you this one. We'll run the main file again and get this up and running. I've got a new web interface just to give you an idea about how this might look in a production environment. So we'll just spin this up. And this is like a reimagining of things that we could potentially do over in Security Copilot. They do have this concept of skills, which is called plugins in Security Copilot, but I wanted to take this to the next level. So rather than having a skilled security or compliance person using Security Copilot, now we could give this type of tool, this custom agent that has specific tools built inside it. In this example, I've got inside threat, data breach, or a GDPR DSAR. So these are skills I've built in, but we can also bring our own as well. So what this is designed to do is I'm using Azure OpenAI's services under the covers, but I can call those graph APIs in order to interact with Microsoft Purview as well from an eDiscovery point of view. So I can do simple things just like you can do today, like we can call all cases. This will come back in a second. But also notice I got the same drop down here where I can choose either manually to say what skill I want to call, or I can get the agent to automatically call that skill as and when it's required. So it's not putting that into memory and then bloating the context window unnecessarily. So here we can see we've got a project alpha under investigation. We can see the case ID here as well, and some other descriptions as well around the case. I can also create cases as well through this agent and those APIs. So it's saying a case created, but again, I could be filling out this prompt in order to create these new cases. And then lastly, I might want to add certain custodians. I'm going to add myself. And would you like to please provide a display name for Graham Hosking? So I'll add him. So yeah, it's going to be Graham Hosking. Again, more context I give it, it's going to go away and add that custodian automatically. So it doesn't mean then I have to go and understand all of the functions and features that come with eDiscovery Premium. I can just use this chat interface in order to manage those specific cases. But say, for example, I want to raise an investigation for an insider threat. You know, that might be a scenario inside your organizations where you're doing a deeper dive into that person or keeping that person under investigation for a period of time. When I click on these presets, just for the demo purposes, is you can see it's automatically called the insider threat built-in skill. So this is the way my organization now will handle that insider threat or that potential threat. And it gives us some verbatims about how it's going to go and manage that. We can do the same thing as well when it comes to data breaches. So respond to a data breach within SharePoint. Maybe the permissions haven't been set correctly. How does us as an organization react to that? So again, it's taking that skill markdown language and the resources and our policies and our standards that come with that in order to respond in a specific way. This isn't formatted in a way that I would like, but you get the idea. But we can also upload new skills, like I said. So as and when our policy changes, or maybe I'm a new, well, maybe an advanced person of this tool, I can go in and I have an eDiscovery policy or a legal hold skill that I personally have. I know all the policies and procedures for that. So let's pick the legal hold and we'll add that in and we can upload it. We'll see that in the web interface as well. This is version 1.2 of my skill. And again, we're able to ask questions now of this agent that will call that specific way that we do legal holds. A really important part of this for any organization in the last couple of years is understanding what data is on hold as well, especially for those organizations like big banks where they're being told they must retain and hold certain information. Sometimes being able to create those reports and understanding why that data isn't under hold is key. So we could add to that as a skill as well, extra context to this agent about why that is under that. So we've got some other skills as well. So maybe you're running certain eDiscovery policies. So I've got an eDiscovery policy governance. Again, that targeted operating model about how we do specific investigations using data retrievals or eDiscovery. And then you can see I've also written in that description a bit of an example about how and when to use these. So for the eDiscovery one, it's designed to develop and implement and maintain eDiscovery policies and governance frameworks aligned with specific regulations. So again, this is something outside of technology, but it's something that we can bring in as part of that technology as well, and making life a lot easier and using natural language, something we're all used to using, in order to do something very, very specific within this type of agent. So it might not just be people within the business that need these agents or those chats or those skills, but more technical people. This is another tool. AI is another tool that they can use to better understand different procedural items or do investigations. So when I worked at a cybersecurity organization up in Edinburgh, we talked about different procedures about how to do investigations from a cybersecurity point of view. And this comes as part of that as well. So we can visualize those more structured workflows in order to do things like a spam investigation or a email spam investigation. So let's run this one up for a second. This one's called workflow. And what this allows us to do is use that dev UI that I showed you earlier on in order to visualize the process. So we can get this agent to understand when it triggers for that certain type of investigation, it will call those workflows, here's what I've got on the screen, to detect and analyze certain spam or certain threats, for example. And what's cool, once you define this process, then we can see how the agent is going to go through and analyze that specific spam. Is it spam? Does it need to be escalated? Is it something that we can handle automatically? Is it something, that is a P1 that everybody needs to go and sort out? So you're able to see the workflow being handled by these agents and then what the completion was as part of that process. So just to show you at the very start here, I can define what the agent needs to go and process. So this would be a payload that we would pass from the agent into this workflow and the stages it would go through in order to handle that. So as always, I hope you liked this video. I know I try to cram in way too much in some of these, but I just want to make this real for people. Like, what does AI mean? How do I use this? What's the impact? What's the value of using AI in my business? Well, I've shown you a glimpse of that today. I would say as a key takeaway, head over to the Agent Framework GitHub repo. There is a very, very good 30-minute video that you should just sit down and listen, where they talk, or the experts talk into depth about what the Agent Framework is, where it came from, why it exists, and then go in and have a play yourself. If you're not familiar with coding, cool, that's fine too. But there's some really good examples that you can reuse, understand, learn from that process, but also use generative AI to help you along the way. But that's it for now, and I'll see you in the next one.